Hello, welcome to the Courageous Self-Care podcast. I'm your host, Christina Marlette. On this show, we talk about self-care that is strategic because there is self-care that, well, it kind of works on the outside of you. It can be a Band-Aid kind of fix. It can be a temporary situation. But when you get into really strategic self-care that takes courage, that goes to the inside, that challenges who you think you are and who you feel like you could be, that is what moves the needle. And, you know, I think sometimes we put all our self-care eggs in one basket and we count on one specific thing. Like, I do yoga, so I'm good to take care of everything. But then what if you miss yoga? And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed. I didn't get to take care of myself this week. That's not the way we want it to be. We want it to be a way of being, a way of living, so that most, if not all of your decisions are coming from this place of deep, nourishing self-care that comes from the inside out. So those are my thoughts on self-care today. We're going to talk more about that. And I love to guide you through it because up until recently, self-care wasn't even really a thing. Like the last few generations were about survival, not about self-care. It was just seen promoted as being selfish if you did anything for yourself as a woman. But we're beyond that now. We are making things happen, and we also need to take time to nourish ourselves while we're in action. So I'm here as your guide. I also love to have other guests not other guests. I love to bring on guests as guides as well who feel aligned with courageous self-care. I have such a guest with me today, Michelle Bateman. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. So Michelle, tell us a little bit about what you love and what lights you up and a little bit about who you are.
Well, one of my most favorite things to do is self-learning. So learning all about what's going on with me, what's going on with my thoughts, what's going on with what am I believing, what am I saying, how am I feeling? All of those things are so intertwined. And once I learned the connection between that and made that shift and change, my whole life shifted and changed. So for me, that's definitely something that lights me up, is just learning new things, learning new perspectives, hearing people's stories of what they've overcome and what they've achieved in spite of all of the circumstances that they're under. Those things like so fuel my soul to help me create more in the world. And when I'm, not feeling like I could do the things that I want to do, when I see other people that are normal people just like me, they get up every day just like me, and they were able to do that. So that helps me, give me the courage, the motivation, the strength, the belief to move forward and create greater things in my own life.
Ooh, so delicious. I totally identify. I love learning new things, and I think I'm pretty fascinating. So I love learning about myself and learning about who I am through other people and their stories as well. So I can identify.
Yeah.
So Michelle, I love to get guests to share a current favorite self-care practice. And before you do that, I think it's really important to understand that there's a huge variety of what we can do to care for ourselves. And for you as listeners, it's so beneficial to hear, oh, I do that. I didn't think that was self-care. Like I said no just the other day. She's telling me that I can set boundaries. That's a self-care practice. I had no idea. Or it could be like, oh, I didn't know that people did that for self-care. I think I'd like to try that. I love to get lots of different ideas. So what's something that you love to do that really fills you up, Michelle?
Probably my go-to would be listening to podcasts or audiobooks. So for me, I know when I'm struggling or I'm not feeling totally clear or confident, I'm feeling down, whatever that I'm experiencing, my go-to would be to listen to something because a couple of reasons. It quiets that inner dialogue in my head that's usually not positive, that's usually not constructive and helpful. So when I'm listening to something, that's not active.
Right.
And the second part is that I'm learning something new. I'm learning new ways to think. I'm learning new ways to believe and to see the world differently, because wherever your thought goes, your energy flows, and they're all super connected. So I know that when I get my thoughts right, that just kind of corrects whatever it is I'm struggling with and gives me new tools and strategies to handle it in a different way that I maybe would not have, or remind me of things that I already knew, but I maybe wasn't putting into practice at the moment.
Absolutely. I think the three most dangerous words that we can say is, I know that.
Yeah.
Really, we don't know something unless we're actually acting on that knowledge. If it's just sitting in the back of our brains and
Right. Yeah. Knowledge isn't power. It's applying that and taking action is where the power is.
Exactly. And I love, Michelle, that you talked about that's your go-to to shift your energy. And that's so important because there are so many different things that we can consume. They're every end of the spectrum, but so many people are stuck on consuming what makes us feel worse than when we turned it on, whether it's music or TV or movies or the news, constantly negative news network. And so to be really conscientious and choose what you are consuming, like conscious consumption, it's really powerful. And I think a lot of people don't realize that we have that choice. You don't just have to listen to a
No.
barrage of
And I do
ads and
not.
bad news.
I do not. I have removed all of that. The more sensitive I became to feeling energy, positive and negative, I really use my body to tune in to go, does this feel good in my body? Listening to the news, nothing about that feels good. I don't listen to it. I don't partake in it. I figure if something critical is happening in the world, somebody will let me know. Other than that, I don't need to consume what's wrong in the world. I prefer to listen to what's right in the world, what's beautiful, what's inspiring, what's great in my TV shows, my movies, the people I hang around with. You know, being around negative people is hard for me because I surround myself with so much positivity that I just go with what makes me feel good.
Yeah, and you're so right. The body is a very instant way to find out whether something is serving you and giving you energy or totally draining you.
Yep.
Where do you notice it in your body?
Usually in my chest. Like it's a tightening and it's almost like a repelling back, like my body feels like it wants to push away from instead of moving towards, right? The people that you love and care about, you want to hug them, you want to be close to them, you want to connect with them. And the things that don't feel good, they repel and they make me want to back up.
Totally. I was chatting with someone at a course recently, and he was asking me, what do you do with all the dream stealers in your life and the negative people? And I thought, you know, I don't actually have any of those. I've worked hard to not be in that kind of energy. And I think a huge part of it is not listening to the news and ingesting that kind of media. I just don't have that wavelength very much, if at all. So I don't have negative people in my life. And so that's a great reason to do what you're suggesting is turn on the positive vibes, surround yourself with people you want to be with, that you want to hug and move towards rather than tighten up and move away.
Yeah, because everyone, 99% of the people I have in my life would totally support any dream that I have. I have come up with some crazy, crazy, insane dreams. And they're like, of course you will. Like to them, it's not even a thing. So I'm really cautious of who I share those with because I know who's going to support and who's not.
Yeah. Oh, you're giving so much great advice and wisdom in your answers. I love it. And yeah, that's super important to share only with the people who you know will support you.
Yep.
So what is an example of a crazy dream that came true that you shared with just a select an amount of people who supported you?
Oh, there's a few. Which one would I pick? Probably the biggest and the scariest was starting my business and being a single mom and having a mortgage and kids and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, so many people totally believed in me and cheered me on and encouraged me. And so, you know, making that a reality and doing it terrified made it so much more fulfilling than if I would have just said, oh, that was an easy thing to do. But I was scared out of my mind and I did it anyway.
Awesome. Love it. And just so our listeners can find out, what is your business?
My business is called Soul Journey, and I am a transformational soul coach and speaker. And I help people, empower people to know that they have the ability to change their life. And I just thought, you know, life showed up and you went along for the crappy ride, and mine was pretty crappy. And once I realized that I had the power to change that, I wanted to share that with other people so that they could feel empowered, that they have the ability to change their life and create a life they love.
Exactly. That's great news. And we want everyone to know that you have the choice and the power.
Needs to know. I didn't know that. And there's a lot of people that don't know, and they think they just have to live this unhappy, unfulfilling life. And, you know, our society is filled with that right now. And it's really unfortunate.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be this way.
No, it doesn't.
You could be really excited.
Oh my God, I love my life. I went from thinking I'd never be happy again to loving my life, and I have the most amazing, blessed life. And I never thought that would be possible.
Mm,
So, when you just change the thoughts and the beliefs of what you think is possible in your reality, you open up so many possibilities. And yeah, I kind of begin to tell you the crazy things that have happened.
so exciting. And I agree. For me, I had what I thought was a really happy and great life. And then I outgrew all the dreams I had for myself. And I thought,
Now what?
what now? So I had to go bigger and create new dreams. And now I have some that are very scary. So that's good news.
That's cool. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to take a quick break here for a brief commercial. And when we get back, Michelle is going to share a story of courage. So we will see you. Well, we won't see you. You'll hear us back in just a minute. Hooray, you're still here, we're still here, and thank you for being here. You can give yourself a big pat on the back for practicing some courageous self-care today, listening to new ideas, being in this amazing energy vortex we're creating here. And what we're going to do next is hear Michelle's story of courage. And Michelle, I know you have a lot to choose from, but one of the reasons I love to get immersed and showered with stories of courage by guests on the show is because, as you were alluding to earlier, courage is contagious. The more we can immerse ourselves in the energy of courage when we hear other people's stories of overcoming fear, doing what they thought was impossible and coming out okay on the other side, it gives us that same energy to go out and go into and move forward into our dreams. So Michelle, what story of courage would you like to share with us today?
This is actually a really new one. This just happened this weekend. So I'm still kind of sort of processing and figuring it all out. But we did, it was like an amazing race in the city of Edmonton. So it was called the Ultimate Race. And so you have a partner and you get these clues and you have to travel all around the city and do these crazy things in a race to win at the end of the day. So we started out as a deficit. Our first clue was a Sudoku puzzle. Neither of us have done that. So we have no idea how to solve this. So we're sitting there going, yeah, I got nothing. I don't know what to do. So we're already last to start out. So then we got to, right after lunch, we had to hike down into a ravine, and we get down there and they're like, you're going to do some self-defense training and someone's going to come at you and choke you.
Oh,
And
great.
we're going to teach you how to defend yourself. However, I've had past trauma and abuse in that specific instance.
Wow.
So hearing that triggered the crap out of me. And I was really surprised because it was over 20 years ago. So I didn't know that this was still a thing for me. And so it was started really slowly, like, I don't think I like this. Yeah, I don't like this. I'm not liking this. To feeling this panic set in. Tears are starting to come down. I don't have my sunglasses on. I can't hide. I'm out in the open with all of these people and I'm starting to freak out. And God love my partner. He was so awesome. And he knew right away that something was wrong. And I turned around and I looked at him and he's like, hey babe, I'm right here. We're in this together. Do you trust me? Like, you're safe. You'll be okay. We'll get through this. So I would have left had he not been there. So he talked me through it. And not only are they doing that, they're making you do push-ups and jumping jacks and burpees. So they're physically taxing you. Plus we just hiked down into a ravine. I'm freaked out of my mind. I've got all these flashbacks happening and I'm trying to process this. And then the second activity was they come at you with a knife, a plastic knife, to teach you how to defend yourself against that, to how to block so that you don't get hurt. And I get the intention. It's to empower you to protect yourself. However, when you're in a triggered trauma state, like everything shuts down. So my brain's shutting down, like I only remember part of it. But luckily I had the awareness to know what was going on, whereas other people wouldn't know what was happening. So I made it through that, get to the car, complete breakdown. I start crying. We talk it through. And then our second challenge that we ended up was dealing with heights and free falling.
Oh my.
Hey, what do I hate the most in the world? And I've conquered some fear of heights. We hike in a retreat in Sedona and we sit on the end of cliffs and we look over but I'm sitting, I'm safe, I'm not falling. So those kind of things are okay. So we get there and there's these freestanding posts and they're like, I don't know, 20, 30 feet in the air, and you're harnessed and you have to climb up these pillars and there's nothing to hold on to. I'm like, I'm not doing that one. You're doing that one. And so mine was, I had to hold on to this metal bar and be hoisted up to like the top of a warehouse ceiling. And you're on this like slide panel thing, and then you have to drop and let go.
Oh my.
And I'm up there. And so I'm already triggered. I'm already freaking out. And then I'm in the midst of this and I'm like, get me down, get me down. I start freaking out, and they started to lower me down and I let go. So I did most of it, but I feel like I didn't do all of it. So then I was being really hard on myself, and then wondering why I was so scared when logically I knew I was safe. But when you're in a triggered state and you're in fear and trauma, you can't intellectualize things anymore. So then from that challenge, we had to go and memorize a gymnastics floor routine. And by then, like, my brain was done. So I left that challenge, went to the car, had another cry. I just needed to be alone and just kind of release some of it. So then I tried to memorize this gymnastics routine, and I'm like, yeah, there's like nothing going on in here. You're going to have to do it. So God love him. He did a really lovely gymnastics routine. And it made me laugh, and it was what I really needed. But yeah, that was probably the most scared I've ever felt in my whole life.
Wow. So thank you for sharing that, Michelle. That was very up and down and all over the place. It was very exciting.
It was all over the place.
Yeah.
And for me, being in the role that I play, I'm usually the one with the solution. I'm the one that's usually helping everybody else. So for me to feel super out of control with these emotions that are 25 years old that I had no idea were even still in there, brought up a lot of stuff. And then I began to be hard on myself and, feeling like I let my team down because I wasn't able to perform. So I really had to talk myself through the internal dialogue that I had going on, that this was beyond my control. It wasn't me just quitting. Like, I showed up, I stayed, I did it. And I had to give myself credit for what I did instead of focusing on what I didn't do.
Absolutely. And
but it was hard.
I get it. It is so much easier to be hard on ourselves than to be loving and give ourselves a pat on the back and cheer ourselves on. And there's a couple of things you said in there that I wanted to highlight. So the first thing is that rather than trying to hide the emotions, you went and felt them. And that is an incredibly courageous thing to do, to cry when you need to cry, to shake and tremble when you need to shake and tremble and be scared. That is so powerful. I think that's one of the most important ways that we can care for ourselves, is to actually feel our emotions rather than suppress them or save them for later or try to hide them because we don't want other people to think that we're weak or whatever stories we tell ourselves. So that is one amazing thing that I love. And the second thing is I love that you got some help from your partner, who then went and did the gymnastics routine. And that highlights another aspect of courageous self-care, which is we don't have to do it by ourselves. We're not in this world alone. There is absolutely nothing we need to rely on ourselves 100% to accomplish every single thing in our lives. We can be in partnership. We can have coaches. We can have mentors. We can have partners. We can ask for help from our kids. Like, there is so much help available, and you did that and you got a great laugh out of it, which is what you needed in the first place after you were going through all that stuff. So thank you for pointing those things out in your story of courage.
Thank you. And it was just so nice that in the midst of it, two things he said was, how can I support you right now? Like, what do you need? How can I be there for you? That really helped. And I felt totally safe to let all of that out in front of him. I didn't worry about being judged or how he was going to perceive it. But he said, I'm honored that you would share something that deep, that raw, that scary with me, and that you were able to share that with me. So we experienced that together, and I feel closer to you now because of that. Not, I judged you or I looked down on you or I thought you weren't good enough because all happened. So sometimes we try to protect people from what's really going on, but we block them out and we lose some connection and vulnerability and intimacy that can be created in those kind of times.
Exactly. Oh, I'm covered in goosebumps because you're speaking the truth.
Yeah, living it's one thing, right? Like,
Yes.
really loves to go through these experiences. So on the other side, I'm like, hey, here's the benefit. But in the moment,
Yes.
was I loving the experience? Not really. I'll be honest.
No, and that's often what it feels like when you're on the verge of fear and moving through fear. It's not fun. It is wildly uncomfortable. And on the other side, it's totally worth it.
For sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I just wanted to mention, sometimes we go into situations, whether they're healing sessions or we hire a coach or we go into something like this race, and stuff comes up and it seems like, oh my gosh, my life is worse than when I started. But what's actually happening is what needs to be healed is getting revealed. And so that trauma that you experienced 25 years ago, underneath, it's still ruling a lot of what's going on in your life. And so the fact that you were able to address it and move through it, it's not going to have that power over you anymore.
No, yeah. And they've encouraged me to continue some self-defense, to continually put myself in that position, to allow more to come up
Right.
until there's no reaction anymore, right? But we often run from the things that come up because it doesn't feel uncomfortable, but you have to actually go into it. You have to feel it to heal it, and really embrace and allow it and welcome it instead of resisting it.
Totally. So much goodness in your story. I love it. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you.
So I know people are going to be asking, how can I get in contact with Michelle? It sounds like she has so much amazing stuff to offer. So how can they find you online?
There's a few ways. So you can connect with my website. It's souljourney.co. And you can also find me on Facebook, Soul Journey Transformations, as well as on Instagram. I do primarily post more on Facebook than I do on Instagram, but I am on both. So you can find me, Soul Journey Transformations, on either one.
Excellent. So take action if you're feeling some sort of energy by listening to Michelle. You want to know more about the crazy stuff that she does or how she transformed her life from scared single mom to successful businesswoman, leading people on these soul transformations. Please go take a look. The link is also in the show notes, so it's one easy click away. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your great self-care ideas and your story of courage. It was really delicious and exciting.
Thanks for having me. I love having these conversations and just getting the information out to more people to know that, the importance of self-love and self-care and how that really can transform your entire life is pretty powerful.
Absolutely. You're so right. True self-love and self-care changes everything. So it's worth investigating and then taking action. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to connecting with you again next time. Bye-bye for now.